Welcome to Turn the Dial podcast. This is the podcast for business and sales in the real estate and mortgage industry mostly. And today we've got a special guest from Remax Southern Shores in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We have Brandi Minchillo. Brandi, how are you today?
I'm great, Scott. Thanks.
Awesome. So Brandi is right about 5 years in the real estate business, and she is a Platinum Club Award winner with Remax, which puts her as a top producer. She's one of the top agents in the Grand Strand in the Myrtle Beach area of South Carolina. She did $11 million in volume approximately this year. She's been a speaker at multiple venues, right, in New York and Las Vegas at the International Conference for Remax. You are the chairperson for the Young Professionals Network. You are a leader in the South Carolina Realtors for 2020. And you also sit on the committee for Pathway to Possibilities, and you've got a few kids and a husband. So you've got a very busy life. But you know what? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Where did you grow up? How did you get to Myrtle Beach? And what got you into real estate?
Yeah, awesome. So it's really an interesting story, and kind of the life that you lead, the path that you take, can put you in the strangest of places. So I started out in a rural upstate New York neighborhood. I grew up in Liberty, New York, which you probably can't even find on a map. It's such a small place. And from there, I traveled around New York, going to college at SUNY Cortland, which is State University of New York in Cortland, New York. And then I went to Iona College. I went to school to become a teacher, and I was an elementary school teacher for about 10 years,
wow.
Believe it or not. So I started teaching in the city of New York, and then one day I came on vacation here in Myrtle Beach with my family, and the interesting story is that when I was a kid, I came from a blue-collar family, and the only vacations we ever took were to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Oh.
My parents bought a timeshare here really early on in my childhood, and from the time I was about 6, I visited Myrtle Beach every single year.
Nice.
So we came on another one of those family vacations, but at this time I was already an adult. I was married. I had my first child, and we visited Myrtle Beach in February. It was the first time I'd ever visited Myrtle Beach in February, and it was really cold. I mean, like really cold. I was not prepared for Myrtle Beach to be that cold, so I had like a sweatshirt, and we really couldn't do anything. We couldn't go outside because it was cold. So it was around the time that the market had collapsed pretty much everywhere in the United States.
Right.
But it had collapsed here in Myrtle Beach also. And so as I was, walking around different shopping areas, we saw all these signs for open houses, and we thought, what the hey, let's walk in there and see what this is about. Well, if you're from New York and you live in Westchester County, New York, and then you look at a house in Myrtle Beach and you see that, for 3,000 square feet and granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, you could buy this house for $250,000. You're like, that's it, I'm moving.
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
Literally what happened to us.
Wow.
So we ended up buying a piece of property before we left the beach, and we decided to build a house, and that's what we did. And that's kind of the story of how I got to Myrtle Beach. I had no job. My husband had no job, but we were like, it's really cheap. We can make it work.
Right.
That's what we did.
Nice.
Yeah.
So fear is not something that you are challenged with in your world, right? I mean, you basically are like, hey, let's just do this, and we'll figure it out when we get there, so to speak, right?
That's right.
That's awesome.
I think fear limits you in life in general. So I try to just kind of take the leap and make it work. That's my mindset on the whole thing.
Nice. Okay, so you and Neto got down here to Myrtle Beach, and then what got you into real estate?
So obviously, to get a mortgage, if you're in the real estate world, you understand to get a mortgage, you have to be in the same line of work that you were in, right? If you're moving from one state to another. So I was a teacher. And at the time, my husband was working the back end of a dental corporation, and they were not going to let him keep his job. And it's really hard to find the same job here in Myrtle Beach, so I had to be the one that had the same job. So I flew down to Myrtle Beach for 3 or 4 days, and I interviewed with 4 schools, and they all hired me. So then it was, who am I going to choose to work with?
Right.
And so I just made a decision to take a job with one of the schools, and I got down here, but at the end of the day, it really wasn't meant for me. If you've lived in New York, you know how much a teacher salary is in New York. And then you move down south, it's a completely different thing. I basically took less than half for a salary. And I learned very quickly that that wasn't going to work for me in my lifestyle, the lifestyle that I'd been leading up until that point. So I ended up staying there for 2 years. And then I came home one day and I said, honey, I'm not going to teach anymore. I'm not making enough money. This is not fulfilling for me.
Right.
And I thought he was going to kill me, but he did not. And so at the same time, I just had our second child, my son Noah. So we had a baby, and I decided I was leaving my job. That didn't go over really well. And so I was looking for jobs online, like most of us millennial generation type people do, look for things online. And I found that there were all of these companies looking for real estate agents. And I was like, how hard can that be? I've seen HGTV. That's got to be super easy. I can do this. And so I was with my son all day while I was on maternity leave. And then at night, I went to real estate school. So technically, I was still teaching, but in the daytime, I was on maternity leave. So I was with my son. My husband was at work. He came home. I left. I went to real estate school. I got my real estate license. And I decided to finish out the year teaching. But I was going to go into real estate after that. So that's how I got into real estate. I really just stumbled onto it. It was just something to do. It's not like it was a burning desire for me.
Right. And it just turns out that you're really good at it.
Yeah.
So right on. All right. Well, I have obviously known you for several years, and I've noticed that you tend to lead your business with an attitude of gratitude. In fact, I know that you just got done doing a 30-day gratitude challenge, which was pretty cool to watch and witness all these videos that you did on your Facebook page. And I just want to give our audience the definition of gratitude. Obviously, there's several different dictionaries that you can look at to find this, but the one that I found says the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation for, and to return kindness. Mm-hmm. But how do you define gratitude?
So personally, I think that gratitude is so much more than just surface level thank you. It's really easy to say thank you.
Right.
And a lot of times, especially in sales, that just comes off of the tip of our tongues, just as something that's the right thing to
Autopilot,
say, right?
Yeah.
Autopilot. But I think there's a difference between true gratitude and just saying thank you. So I learned really early on that I wasn't perfect, right? Especially when you're starting a new career. And I started a new career in my 30s after doing, a totally different job where I had a salary that was guaranteed. And it was a challenge in the beginning. I think it's a challenge for most agents in the beginning. It was a challenge for me. And I was working in an office where there were a lot of successful people. And I just learned really early on that your mindset is going to really determine your success. So
Absolutely.
If you can look for things that you're thankful for on a daily basis and focus your mindset on those things that you're thankful for, then you train your brain really to look for the positive and look for the good. So in the beginning, and this is really raw and real, in the beginning, all the other agents were going out to lunch every day, and do you want to come out to lunch? And I was like, I have no money. I can't go out to lunch. I mean, the very little money that I do have, I need to feed my family. And, so I have yogurt here. I'm going to sit here at my desk and eat this yogurt. Right. But I look back on that time and I have so much gratitude for that time, because knowing that I was there and seeing what everybody else was doing and having the ability to learn from these people that were really successful really started to drive my business. So there was not one person that trained me, but I watched what all of the successful agents were doing, and I was grateful to be in an environment where there were all of these successful agents. So to me, gratitude is something that you really have to cognitively look for. It's not, you have to look for it in the good times and in the bad times, right? So every transaction that we do as a real estate agent doesn't go perfectly, but I'm grateful for the mistakes because they teach me a lesson.
Right.
And then hopefully I don't repeat that same mistake in the future. And I think that people who try to be perfect all the time or view themselves as perfect and think that they can't do any wrong aren't being real and true to themselves and aren't really growing within the profession. So I went from, making pretty much zero money my first 6 months in real estate to being 100% club the following year Which
That's
in our
awesome.
market it's tough. I mean, the
Right.
average price point in our market today in 2019, almost 2020, is only about $220,000 a transaction, right? So back when I started 5 years ago, it wasn't even over that $200,000 mark. So to get to that club level was a lot of transactions. So it was a significant number. So I think that the gratitude piece is just significantly important in kind of catapulting your success as an agent and as a human being. I mean, I try to be grateful for all of the good and all of the bad in my life. And I think that if you look and approach everything with that positive mindset and being grateful for even things that don't go right, that you will be successful in life and in relationships. And we're in a relationship business.
Absolutely. So luckily for you, you partnered with Remax Southern Shores, right?
Yes.
This is the #1 company for real estate on the Grand Strand.
One of the best decisions I've ever made, Scott.
Yeah, and so surrounding yourself, like you're talking about all of these other agents that you're kind of learning from, watching the successful agents. What are they doing to be successful? How do you picture that leading? Like, let's say a new agent gets into the business. Where should they hang their license? Where should they go to surround themselves with the right people? And what does that look like for them?
Right. So, it's an interesting thing about real estate that's different than probably all other careers, right? Typically for a job, you go and you interview and you're trying to get someone to hire you.
Right.
In most cases, where real estate is considered, you're going and basically you have your choice. You have a pick of the litter.
Sure.
They want a body, someone who can potentially sell something that's going to increase their revenue. So when I was looking for a real estate company to hang my license with, Remax Southern Shores was the only place that wasn't like that. And so that right away to me was like, ding, 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 ding. Why don't they want me to come and work for them immediately after my first 15-minute interview with them?
Right.
Why am I meeting with them 3-4 times before we get to the point where we're discussing what it would be like to work here?
Right.
They were really taking the time to get to know me on a personal level, learning about my skill set, trying to gauge my personality and my temperament, because they wanted to make sure that I fit into the Remax Southern Shores culture. So when you ask that question, I think probably the thing that you should look for in a real estate company is that positive culture. We are intrinsically competing against one another in real estate, right? So everybody that works here at Remax Southern Shores is technically competing for the same business. But I don't feel like we're competing for the same business, because we really do fundamentally believe that we live in a world of abundance.
Yep.
And that there is business out there, and that by lifting one another up, we're actually growing Remax Southern Shores as a brand versus trying to compete against one another and be cutthroat. So our culture is very positive. We do a lot of celebrating of success here. We celebrate first closings. Like if it was New Year's Eve,
Right. Yeah.
with
Nice.
noisemakers and lots of fanfare. We celebrate all of the holidays. We have big gatherings. We attend each other's open houses, not because it's a requirement of the company, but
Support
because
each other.
we support each other. We've built those relationships with one another.
Nice. Yeah. You want to play better golf, you got to play with better golfers, right?
That's right.
So that's my problem. I only seem to be playing with better golfers. Maybe that says something about my golf game. It's not very good. Okay, so in terms of you actually being appreciated and thanked, what's your favorite way personally for somebody to appreciate you or to thank you?
So, I mean, I don't know that I necessarily have a favorite way, but I think from my personality and my temperament, recognition is important.
Sure.
I taught for, like I said, 10 to 12 years. And in that time frame, I don't think that I was ever recognized for anything. It's a thankless job.
Yeah.
You're always being asked to do more things. But with exception of the children really loving on you, there's no real thanks from above, right? So there's just always criticism from above you.
True.
So one of the things that I really loved about coming here to Remax Southern Shores was just the general recognition. Like I said, your first closing, there was like fanfare. Everybody's excited for you and cheering you on. And then, of course, working for Remax, we have recognition of all the club levels.
Right.
Remax Hall of Fame. I was so excited to be inducted into Remax Hall of Fame this year. So
Nice.
for me, I think it's kind of like attaining goals, that is where I get the best recognition. When I can say, hey, I did this, I accomplished that, and I'm recognized for doing that, I think that is how I feel most thanked. And from a client perspective, when they write a great review about the service that I provided with them, that's the best thanks that they could possibly provide me, or a referral of a friend or family member, of course.
Right. That's awesome. By the way, Remax Hall of Fame is $1 million in gross commission over the course of your career. So some agents hit it early. It's rare, like you did in 5 years or just under 5 years. And then some take 20 years, you know. And either way, it's a great recognition piece. But for you to do it in 5 years, phenomenal. That's awesome. Congratulations. So I personally like to thank through personal written notes. I write a lot of them. In fact, probably over 1,000 a year. I've done as many as 2,000 in a year. I think
Does your hand hurt?
Yes. This, and I'm left-handed, so it smears. You know, the ink smears all over the card. This last year, I'm only at about 600-ish or so. But I'm constantly writing personal notes, and that's one of the ways that I like to invest my time to thank people. And also, if it needs to be something a little bit more, I want them to see the recognition a little bit more sooner, the appreciation a little bit more sooner. I do it through video. But what are some of the ways that you recognize or appreciate people?
So I have been writing handwritten notes since I started.
Nice.
It was something that I did early on. I had followed Brian Buffini, and that's one of his big things is just personal notes. I also still do pop buys to this day. 5 years in, I take every other month 2 days to go and visit all of my local clients and deliver them thank you pop buys.
Nice.
And I invite them for Thanksgiving pies. So that's kind of like a reverse pop by, and that's something that Remax Southern Shores actually puts together for the agents here. Also, I always call my clients and just consistently keep in touch with them and thank them for their personal referrals or thank them for buying a property for me well after they've purchased their home and they've gotten in and have settled. I think it's really important to remind people that you appreciate them. I think, you know, statistically, a lot of agents aren't called back to list a house that they sold.
Right.
And you wonder why that is. And I think people just forget about you because you have such a small impact on their life if you're not staying front of mind. You know, you work with them for 30 days. Well, they remember you for that year. But then after that, so much has happened in their life that you're just not front of mind for them anymore. So I think just consistently being there with thank you notes and Christmas cards. And I send out Thanksgiving cards, which sounds a little odd, but I feel like a Thanksgiving card, lots of people send out Christmas cards. Not that many people send out Thanksgiving cards. Yeah. So it's just a chance for me to be a little bit different than somebody else in their life. We also do client appreciation events and parties where we invite clients and their friends to come and hang out with us on a social level. So my kids are there and my husband is there, and they can meet me on a different level than just a business level and get to know me. And, you know, it's a relationship business. So if people know, like, and trust you, then they refer business to you. So that's how I show thanks to the people who are my clients. And then I'm a big gift giver. So to people who I work with, I like to gift them with things that I think that will make them smile, put a smile on their face, buy them a cup of coffee, invite them to lunch. You know, things that are going to just make them feel like they're important in my life.
That's awesome. In fact, you mentioned Brian Buffini. So his database or CRM program is called a client appreciation program.
Okay.
So appreciation is even in the word, you know, in the name of the program, which is kind of cool. So and you hit all the points really that he teaches, which is awesome, that you're kind of following a system or at least aspects of the system.
Right.
I've got a quote I want to read you, and then I want your take on this. So, at times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude about the flame within us. So what is your take on that?
I mean, yeah, we all have those down moments is kind of what I think he's saying. Like we all have days that are not such great days. So I do exercise that in my brain. I'm having a bad day. What can I find to be grateful for today? Right. So my daughter is 9, Ava, and we came up with this idea to do a gratitude jar. Nice. And so every day she puts in just a mason jar, something that she's grateful for in the day, so that when she's down, she's had a bad day, she got a bad grade, someone was mean to her on the school bus, we go through that gratitude jar, just focus on some of the things that we can be grateful for in our lives. So that's a small way that I do it with my child. But similarly, when I'm having a bad day, I'll have a conversation with my husband, and he'll do an exercise with me where he'll say, okay, let's talk about what went well today. What can we find that we're grateful for? Because there are always things that you can be grateful for. And it's really just that mindset. So I think Buffini there is saying that, your clients are going to have days like that too. And you don't know when they're having a day like that, but just consistently expressing gratitude and knowing you're there may lift up someone's day without you even being aware of it. And that will have a lasting impact on them.
Yeah, so my wife, Renee, who I know you know personally, she is normally on this podcast as well. She's not with us today, but she has made it a practice, like just when we're out and about throughout the day, noticing something to appreciate in a total stranger even. And it could be as simple as, I love your sweater,
right?
And the smile that it puts on these folks' face, I watch it kind of take place in front of me, is awesome. And so you never know what somebody's going through, like you just said.
Right.
And for me, I think you know this about me, in 2018, I suffered from depression pretty bad. And so I needed those rekindling of my flame often in 2018 to keep the negative thoughts out of my head. And I'm not a negative person. I don't think anybody would classify me that way. I think on the surface, sometimes we can look a certain way. And there's a lot of people that might be going through depression as well. So I love that you've got this spirit of gratitude, and you're constantly looking for the good in your day. Right. And you've now instilled this in your daughter, which is awesome. I love the jar. We actually have a jar at our house too that's very similar. We need to put more things in it, but it's a habit. It's a new habit for us, to keep putting things into this jar that we're thankful for. So that's really cool. Let's see. How do you ensure that gratitude is part of your everyday? Like, what are some of your tips, tricks? Do you journal? All of that stuff.
So I write 5 thank you cards a day.
Awesome.
So it's just like one of the things that's part of my daily routine. So 5 thank you cards a day. And I mean, a lot of them are really silly thank you cards. Like, thank you for making me laugh today when you did this. I mean, they're so trivial and silly, but I think that they're really important. I also make sure to comment on people's social media threads about things that are life events for them. People post on their Facebook stories about their children, about a new car, about buying a house. And these things are important to these people. So I, try to congratulate them and just express that positivity. So that's not necessarily gratitude, but it's just spreading positivity, because positivity breeds more positivity. And we live in a very negative world. So, the more kind of positive vibes you can put out into the world, I think the better. So I do that. Also, I just focus on that gratitude jar with my daughter every single day. And then I make sure I say thank you to people for little things. I just say thank you when someone does something nice for you. I shared with you yesterday, so we went out to dinner last night, right? I shared with you yesterday that I was in Target and I procrastinated and I waited till the last minute to do my Christmas shopping. Which I do not recommend, but at this point, Amazon will not deliver. Even Amazon Prime will not deliver by Christmas. So there were some things I needed to buy, and there were some big things, some big ticket items. So I went to Target. Target's a madhouse 3 days before Christmas, and the lines were like 20 deep. And this one lady's like, move to line 6 or 8. And I said, all right. And I started to move my cart, and I noticed that line 4 was even smaller. So I got on line 4. And seriously, the moment I got to line 4, there were 10 people lined up behind me. So I get there, and it's my turn to check out, and this very nice salesperson, Josie, she says, I'm going to help you out today, because she could see all the things that were in my cart. It was a pretty packed cart.
Right.
And she takes out her cell phone, and she starts scanning the items, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's scanning them. She was price matching for me. She price matched every single item that was in my cart. She saved me $60 or $70. And awesome. I know you think that she's going to lose her job. But I was so grateful for her. I think like tears were welling in my eyes as I was wishing her a Merry Christmas on my way out the door. I mean, just an amazing human being. So she was spreading thanks and positivity to me. And I mean, I left there and I walked into the Target parking lot, and there were all these carts in the walkway. And I actually put all the carts together and wheeled them over to where the carts are supposed to go. And a gentleman noticed that, and he said, that was so thoughtful of you. And I was just now thinking that how does that one positive action lead to so many more positive actions? So I'm grateful to Josie because she, made me do something positive, and somebody else noticed that, and he's probably going to go out and do something that's positive. So just finding gratitude in small daily moments. I really practice that.
Yeah, any way that you can. And so journaling has been something that I have been teaching for past couple of years and not practicing as good as I should be. It has become a very difficult habit for me to form. And so with journaling, though, I do get the question oftentimes, what do I write in the journal? And my advice is always start with the positive, because it's so easy for us to get sucked into what did we not get done today,
right?
Especially in the business world, right? Any other thoughts on journaling, and what are some of the things that you journal about?
So I have 3 children, and obviously I work full time and I'm pretty busy. So I think journaling is incredibly important. And I was like you. I had these beautiful journals and I thought, I'm going to write these novels in these journals every day. Well, that just doesn't come to fruition because at the end of the day, there's just not enough time. So a friend of mine a couple of years ago introduced me to something called the Happiness Project. Mm-hmm. And so it's a special journal where it has every single day of the year in there, and it only has 3 lines in it. So every day I write in my Happiness Project journal something positive that happened that day, and that's how I journal. And so when I'm having a rough day, and it's a 5-year journal, so you can actually record everything that happens on December 23rd for, 5 years in a row. And so if I'm having a rough day, let's say I had a rough December 23rd today, which so far it's going great, but let's say it was a rough day, I can go back to my Happiness Project journal, open it up, and see what happened on December 23rd of last year or the year prior. That was a positive thing, so that kind of helps to catapult my mood, but that's how I journal. So it's not a huge journal. It's 1, 2, or 3 things that happened that were positive in that day that I can go back and remind myself of. And I think I would rather just focus on the positive things. Who needs to journal about what happened that was negative? I mean, I guess we can learn from our mistakes, but you tend to remember the things that are negative more than you do the things that are positive. So I think it's important to write down those positive things that happen.
Absolutely. And we would shock ourselves if we knew how many things we actually did get done in the course of a day.
Right.
But we tend to focus on those 1 or 2 or 3 things we didn't get done. So I like that. And The Happiness Project is a book by Gretchen Rubin.
Yes.
Is that the one?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah. So then there's, from a business perspective, I take note of all the calls that I make every day, right? So there are lots of different things. Like I talk to some of the agents in the office who put like scrunchies on their arms, really horrible fluorescent pink looking scrunchies. And after they make their 10 calls, they can, take a scrunchie off every call they make.
Nice. Okay.
I just do tallies on a sheet, and I note like somebody who makes me smile that I speak to on the phone. Like I'm going to remember to thank them for not being rude and hanging up on me when I'm doing a prospecting call. Like, no, you don't want to sell your house, but you also don't hate me. Thank you.
Right. Nice.
You were also kind to me. So I keep notes about those things.
Very cool. So besides gratitude, what is another reason that you believe has led to your success as a young, professional, successful woman?
I think consistency is key in any business. I think a lot of people approach real estate as a get-rich-quick kind of business, and they're really focused on the money. I think you can't focus on the money. I think you have to focus on something that you're passionate about. I really enjoy what I do. I especially enjoy working with buyers because I think that buyers are so happy. They're buying something that's a place where they're going to create memories and have adventures, and they're excited. And so I'm passionate about their excitement and getting to help them and getting to play a small role in their lives. I think that success is about your consistency in business and being passionate about your business. When I started this business, I had no idea what I was doing. Literally no idea what I was
Right.
doing. I was like, okay, I'm going to show houses, and someone's going to pick one of the 3 houses that I showed them because I watched a lot of HGTV. Well, that's not reality. First of all, you have to find clients to show houses to.
That's a thing, huh?
Nobody explains that to you in real estate school.
Right.
They don't teach that. You have to find clients. Oh gosh, where am I going to find those clients? I had no money, right? I couldn't contribute to those big monsters out there that sell us leads.
Right.
So how do you find clients? So I was just super consistent. I set up a schedule. I think people don't do that. I think they don't treat it like a job. I think they think I'm going to work from home and do my laundry and business is going to magically fall from the sky. And that's not reality. So I would come in every morning. I'd do really elementary things like look up in the white pages, streets, and start making phone calls to people on that street and just saying, hey, our company has a listing here on your street. Do you know anybody who might be interested in buying it? And oh, by the way, are you curious about the value of your home? And I mean, I would just make those calls, and most people would hang up on me, but I didn't care because I was really new at the business and I had no clients and I really needed some. And I think that need to be successful is a driving force. So I would do that every morning from 8:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. And then if I didn't have any clients to work with, I'd get in my car and I'd drive around looking for sale by owner properties.
Nice.
And then I would use like the Buffini approach for approaching these for sale by owner people. I'd say, you know, I have a lot of buyers. Would you be offended if I previewed your property for these buyers? So, you know, there was a little bit of white lie in there. I didn't have a lot of buyers, but they didn't know that. And
right. But you might have a buyer.
Right, I might have a buyer.
Tomorrow.
You never know. Right, exactly. So I got to tour these people's homes, and that's really how I built my business on for sale by owners. And I was just really consistent about it. And people gave me a shot. And I developed really good relationships with these people who have become my raving fans. I use a lot of momentum terms here, but they really have. They've become my raving fans, and they've either done personally several deals with me since, or they have referred me to a lot of their friends and family. And so I think that has been what's made me most successful. The other things that I would say about being successful as someone getting into this business is you have to have a growth mindset. There is always something to learn. You can always be better. I think if you get to a point where you feel like you know it all and you have nothing to learn, that you've reached your peak. You can always be better. You can always learn more. You can always serve better. And I think as I've grown in my career, I've picked up more on that service piece, right? So I do a lot of volunteering within my local association for different charitable organizations. As part of the Young Professionals Network, we work with the Hospitality Committee on Habitat for Humanity bills. Nice. We support the local Boys and Girls Club. We also support an organization in Georgetown County that serves underprivileged children. So we just serve the community. So I guess, I don't know, this is like I've answered this in a lot of different ways. So I guess be consistent, serve others, and do what other people aren't willing to do with a positive attitude every day, and just continue to do it. Don't get into that mindset where you're comfortable and stop coming into work and stop making calls and stop serving others. Because if you do that, it may not impact you in the short term, but I think it will impact you in the long term.
Absolutely. That's very good advice. So I noticed on your Facebook page a few days ago, you kind of teased your audience in a post about a project that you're working on. And the image actually shows a camera as well. Anything you want to share with our audience about this special project you're working on? So
up until now, I've only been recording my own videos, right? So they've been very low tech with my iPhone. I do have a ring light. It does make my face look a little shiny. But other than that, I've been kind of, recording my own videos. So I decided going into 2020 that I really was going to invest in more video reaching marketing on social media. So I have hired a young up-and-coming videographer, and he and I are working on a special project.
Nice.
And I won't tell you exactly what that special project is going to be, but you're going to see a lot of professional videos from me in 2020. Cool. And it's actually a labor of love. I really enjoy what I get to do, and I'm having a great time behind the camera. Some people get nervous behind a camera. I'm the kind of person that's a very unscripted speaker. So when you see my videos, you'll be able to tell that they're unscripted.
But that's authentic. It's authentic, right?
So, it is. And it's going to be, it's going to be videos on a variety of different things. Some things pertaining to real estate, some things pertaining to our area in general, and life here in Myrtle Beach and the surrounding area.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we'll look forward to seeing that soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
What's the, I've got a couple follow-up questions or final questions for you, rather, before we wrap up our podcast here. What's the best advice that you've ever been given?
The best advice that I have ever been given was from actually Dave Liniger himself. So I won a video contest a couple years ago at R4, and we got to spend some time with Dave, and I got to ask him, what some of the pieces of advice that he had for us were. And one of the things he shared was that you should plan out all of your travel at the end of a year for the following year, and you shouldn't deviate from that travel no matter what. You should put yourself first and remember that we live in a world of abundance. Mm-hmm. And if $1 million buyer walks into your door a day before you're supposed to leave for travel, you should not change your travel plans. You should stick to what you're going to do. And I didn't live that right away, but I've started to do that, and I'm incredibly grateful for that, because in the last year, I've done a lot of traveling with my family, and I've been able to enjoy my travel without worrying so much about my business. And I think it's important to just remember as agents that everyone will be okay if you leave town for a little while. They're going to be okay. They're not going to die. Every deal is not going to fall apart if you don't, attend to everybody's need immediately, because we live in this world of immediate gratification. They will be okay. And you just need to prepare them and communicate with them about what's going on. And most people that you want to work with are going to be okay. And it's also okay to not work with everybody.
Right.
It's okay to not work with people that don't understand that you also have a life. You're not an agent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You do actually need to do things like sleep and bathe.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah. So conflict only arises when expectations differ. So you're saying basically if you communicate that up front, then you can take the vacations and your clients aren't going to care. In fact, they're going to probably be happy that you're going to be going off with your family, right?
Exactly. And so learning and growing, right? So I didn't do that in the beginning, but now I have expectation sheets that are in all of my client packets. And
that's awesome.
They get to see them when they meet with me, and they sign them so that later on, if they say, I called you at 8:00 and you didn't call me back until, 9:30 the next morning, I can say, do you see this piece of paper that you signed here that says, if you call me after 7, it's highly unlikely that you'll hear back from me until the following morning. Yeah,
we talked about that.
We talked about
exactly.
This kind of a thing.
That's awesome. So one more quote I want to read just in terms of gratitude. In ordinary life, we hardly realize that we receive a great deal more than we give. And that is only with gratitude that life becomes rich. And that's Dietrich Bonhoeffer that said that. And so I just wanted to end with that quote and ask you, in terms of growing, you mentioned earlier kind of always wanting to grow yourself and personal growth. You did mention to me that you're a reader. What's a recent book that you've read that you want to share with our audience?
So there are two, actually, that I've recently read. I was a part of the Coastal Carolina Association of Realtors Leadership Academy this year. I just graduated, and there were two books that we read during that session. One was The Carpenter by John Gordon. It's an excellent book. He's written several excellent books that I've read since reading that one. But this one is specifically about success strategies. It's a really fast read. The chapters are 3 to 4 pages, and it takes you through learning life lessons through a story of someone who is successful and then feels their success fading because of unforeseen circumstances, and how someone walks into their life and, they learn basic principles about what it really means to be successful through their interactions with this person. So I won't tell you the entire story, but it's a really great read, and it's a really fast read. And I've actually bought several copies of it to give to people as Christmas gifts because it's such a great read.
Yeah.
The other book that I've recently read that was a gift to us upon graduation was The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And this is less of a business book, more of a personal book about really finding personal freedom. The book is kind of a code of conduct, advocating personal freedom, freeing yourself from limitations that are put on you by society. And it's based on ancient Toltec wisdom, but I highly recommend you read it. Also a very quick read, and principles that if you follow in your life will really change your life. Really simple principles that anybody can follow. And I think probably some of the things that we miss in life are nuances. They're simple things that we could just practice in our daily lives that will really change our mindset. So
over time, yeah.
Yeah, I highly recommend that you guys check both of those out.
Very cool. All right, well, if somebody wants to look you up or learn more about you, how do they find you?
So I have a website. It's www.brandysellsthebeach.com because, hey, I work at a beach. And you can also find me on Facebook at Brandi Minchillo, Remax Southern Shores, or on Instagram at Brandi Sells the Beach.
Awesome. Well, I am very thankful for you to take your time with us today on Turn the Dial podcast. It has been so awesome to learn more about you and your life and how you institute gratitude into your daily life. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. This has been Turn the Dial podcast. Turn the Dial is found on iTunes, or you can also find us on Spotify at Turn the Dial podcast. I'm Scott Comey, and until next time, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.